From Bill Maher at the end there, let's bring in Lisa Boothe, host of The Truth with Lisa Boothe podcast. Also, Marc Thiessen joining us, and Mark Penn is with us as well. Both are Fox News contributors. Great to have you all with us today. Let me start with you, Lisa. Your reaction, good to have you with us, guys. Your reaction to that montage that we just played, because for a while it was just Mark Penn who was saying this. But now there are a lot of people who are jumping on board with this idea. Lisa, so where do you think this leaves the president on his 81st birthday? And we wish him a happy birthday today.
Well, he's probably not feeling that great about his birthday when you're looking at all of these numbers heading into the 2024 presidential election. I mean, who thinks this country is on the right track? I mean, it's a very small percentage of the population. And I think if you're Joe Biden, what makes you the most nervous is looking at that most recent New York Times poll, taking a look at the swing states, right? Because we know that presidential elections, it comes down to a handful of states that are going to dictate that outcome, showing that Trump was leading in 5 out of 6 of those states. Under 30 voters, Biden was only winning by a single point. He was in single digits with Hispanics. Trump was registering at 22% in those swing states with black voters, which is something we've never seen before. And then you even have people like David Axelrod taking shots, saying that Biden only has a 50-50 chance, maybe less. I will say all of this with one caveat of the fact that Democrats are trying to put the Republican nominee in jail. And so we don't know how that will impact the outcome of the election.
Yeah, there's still a lot to get figured out here, that's for sure. Mark, I don't know, Mark Penn, I need to say Mark Penn, because we have Marc Thiessen with us as well, and we'll get to you in just a minute, Marc Thiessen. Mark Penn, sure. I don't know how much attention you pay to Cardi B. I don't pay that much attention to Cardi B, I have to admit, but I remember when she endorsed President Biden and that young people thought it was kind of a big deal. I want to play what she's saying now, because when I really looked at this earlier today, I think besides what we're going to have to bleep out here, she's kind of saying a lot and hitting the nail on the head. Let's watch.
I'm not endorsing no presidents no more. Because how is there a $100 million budget cut in New York City for schools, library, police safety, and sanitation? Yeah, Joe Biden's talking about, like, yeah, we could fund 2 wars. We could fund 2 wars. Talking about we don't got it, but we got it. Like, we're the greatest nation. No, we're not. We're going through some now. Like, say it.
So I guarantee you that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, Mark Penn, of people from age 18 to 49 probably have seen that on Instagram and probably watched her on TikTok as well. She's complaining about the migrant issue in New York City, which has caused Eric Adams, the mayor, where she lives, to cut back on all these services. And she says, no, we can't do 2 wars and do this at the same time. What do you make of it, Mark Penn?
Well, I appreciate your calling out, but I've been sort of sounding the alarm for months about these numbers, and the president needs to do something about them. There's no question. People, they're concerned about inflation, they're concerned about immigration, they're concerned about crime, and these are all causing a pretty big deterioration in the numbers. There's still a year here. You know, one poll finding I'd point out is that 77% of Democrats backed Joe Biden for the nomination, so it doesn't seem to be a big Democratic split. But it does seem to be, voters really concerned about Joe Biden and what he would do for a second term. And she's a good example of it. I don't think young people are going to flee at the end of the day and vote for Donald Trump. But I do think the president's got to act on these numbers.
Yeah, I mean, Marc Thiessen, he's really in a tough spot with this Israel-Palestinian issue, because he's bleeding younger voters on this, and you see the protests all across the country. I never thought I would see this a Democrat in so much trouble with so many voters on their own side.
Well, this has become a problem that the Democratic Party has allowed anti-Semitism to creep into its ranks, and they got to deal with that. But he'd be able to absorb that if he was doing well on everything else. I mean, the problem he has is that the majority of Americans think he's too old for the job and that he's doing a terrible job. They wouldn't care so much about his age if inflation was low, the economy was humming, the border was secure, there was peace in the world. Then, he could say, like Ronald Reagan did, it's morning in America again. Ronald Reagan, no one complained about Ronald Reagan's age because everything was going well. So I think this, but Lisa mentioned that New York Times Siena poll. If you look at those swing states, if you take Joe Biden off the ticket, the Democrats crush Donald Trump. in all those swing states in the New York Times Siena poll. So the answer for the Democrats is to replace Biden, because everybody knows he is not going to be able to complete a second term. There is no way that he is going to be president 5 years from now. Yeah. So the smart thing, if they can't get Biden to leave the ticket, maybe the answer is to replace the vice president and make them sort of the chosen successor and de facto successor. Pick a popular Democrat to replace Kamala Harris on the ticket, and then imply that Joe Biden gets to pick his own successor, avoid a fractious party fight, and then he's going to hand it over to her. Except you can't do that because identity politics. They'll never fire the first black woman vice president, so they're trapped by their own identity politics.
I think it's a very interesting plan. Mark Penn, is it one that is doable? Quickly before I get you out of here, and who would that person be? And do you think that Joe Biden has the guts to do that?
I think Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. The entire party machinery is backing him. More Democrats than ever are still backing him. He's got to improve his numbers. Any Democrat that stepped into him would have the problems of inflation, and immigration, and crime. He's not going anywhere.
And not going to pick a different VP?
Not going to.
How about Kamala?
She's not going anywhere.
No, very interesting.
Probably true.
No, but I'm asking if he's going to, have a different number two and present the kind of plan that Marc Thiessen just put forward, where he can offer voters a new ticket on the whole
the Democratic
in terms
Party.
of aspirants for the future.
We want Joe Biden.
We'll see. Thank you very much, you guys. Great to see you all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.